Well, I hope you're ready for some unindoctrination. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, coming to you from the heartland of America in the spirit of 1776 and with a rebel yell. Glad to have you with us here today. We've been pushed too far, and we are back, baby, and better than ever. Appreciate the recent surge in subscribers. I began to wonder what was going on. I don't know, maybe the executive order threatened by Mr. Trump, President Trump, has got the Google people starting to play a little bit more fair. I don't know. We'll see. It's not about the numbers, but it's still nice to be able to have a few more subscribers, because that means there's more people watching and listening. And that's what we're really here for, is to get the message out. And tonight we've got a very interesting message. You might think that it's lighthearted. It's really not. It's actually very serious. It's very, very, I think, sobering. And once we get the full import of the understanding of this, it'll be clear to us. And if you're having trouble understanding, if you really want to get more clarity in your life, get the Focus Life Force Energy High Consciousness on Demand in your home. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the fluffy logo. It looks like a whoosh. You'll know it when you see it. You can get 30 days for free. It's 15 on the phone, 15 on the home. And I'm telling you, you will never be without it again. Great for your plants, great for your food. You get all the nutrients, great for your animals, great for you. It is a high consciousness field beamed right to you on demand. So on demand is what we are tonight with this subject matter. Ladies and gentlemen, from Dracula to Twilight, warnings and apologetics. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. I bring you the truth that no one else will. And that's certainly the case with this one. And I always wonder sometimes, I don't always wonder, but sometimes I wonder, there's things that have been attractive to you all your life, things you've been interested in all of your life. And for me, one of the things I've been interested in is vampire lore. Vampire lore. And I've wondered, why is vampire lore something that has been interesting to me? I would used to draw pictures of myself in kindergarten, first grade, with your crayon as a vampire. So I didn't really get it, but now I'm starting to understand it. And now I'm starting to see what is going on and starting to put the pieces together. Because when you find your great basic purpose, which we'll talk more about in our create yourself criteria, or create yourself curriculum, I guess I wanted to say. And if you missed that one, you need to go back and watch it. But I think you'll start to see why things resonate with you all the way back to your birth and maybe even beyond that. So let's take a look at this. From Dracula, Bela Lugosi, Dracula, to Twilight, I forget his name, Pattinson or something like that, right? So let's talk about this. And it's a no guilt zone. If you've liked vampires, we understand. If you haven't liked vampires, we understand that too. Still drinking a gallon of water a day, so I got to get it down when I can. And I feel a lot better. So let's talk about this. Let's look at this. And it is a very serious subject. You have to say that Edward has the better hair. Edward definitely has the better hair than Bella. And it is interesting. This was Bela Lugosi, and his babe was called Bella. I just thought of that. Isn't that interesting? But of course, there's a reason why he looks the way he looks, and he looks the way he looks. And we're about to get into that, ladies and gentlemen. I think you'll find it fascinating. Also fascinating is this quote from Benjamin Franklin. And Benjamin Franklin was making reference to the Flemish people in this quote. Imaginary man wants to know about Count Chocula. Yeah, I used to like Count Chocula. And Benjamin Franklin said of the Flemish people, They are vampires. Very plainly stated, they are vampires. And he said, and vampires do not live on vampires. Vampires don't suck each other's blood. They just don't. Vampires cannot live only amongst themselves. They must subsist on other people, not of their race. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of this great country of ours, says that the Lemish people are vampires. Now, the question that took me down this road was this: did Bram Stoker, who was the author of the novel Dracula, did he agree with Benjamin Franklin? And did Bram Stoker portray his infamous monster, Count Dracula, as Lemish? Hold on, Brandon. You might be surprised with where we're going. In 1897, Stoker wrote the novel Dracula. And the novel Dracula was the catalyst for the modern popularization and mass marketing of the myth and legend of the vampire. But it's important to remember that the myth and legend of the vampire goes way, 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 way back, ladies and gentlemen. And it is I think we've done studies on this. We've done programs on this. It's my, again, 40 years of this. It's my contention, folks, that the vampire mythos, the vampire lore, has been created as a cover story for abduction, for pedophilia, for the torture, the abduction, and the killing of children. Hold on with your Vlad stuff. I don't want you to feel silly. Just hold on. I've done a lot of study here. Let's just wait and see where this goes. Lola is right on track. She says vampires love adrenochrome. So it's of my opinion, and you'll see as we get through this whether that opinion is valid or not, that Stoker, who was Irish, was writing to try to make the Western people more aware of these European myths and legends, meaning people here in America. And it's commonly believed that Bram Stoker based Count Dracula on the infamous 15th century Prince Vlad Dracula of Wallachia. And he might have indeed. However, Stoker was clearly aware of Vlad, and he did copious research on Vlad and on Romanian history, but he also made much more copious notes, and they found his notebooks, and much more copious research, that means a lot, on the occult and on vampirism in general than just on Romania and on Vlad the Impaler specifically. So the question is, was Dracula presented as a Lemish person, and why? Now, Benjamin Franklin, as we've seen, directly called the Lems vampires. And I'm asking whether or not Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, at least partially, to make Western audiences aware of the dark implications surrounding the European vampire legend. Kids being taken, kids being killed, kids being drained of blood, young adults being drained of blood. Did Stoker intentionally paint Count Dracula as Lemish, and was he trying to tell us something through that? And was Stoker also writing to make Western audiences more aware of who the Ashkenazi Lems are and the occult practices they had learned in Babylon and imported with them everywhere they went? And it's so interesting that Stoker went out of his way to identify, thank you, Jamie, identify the Ashkenazi Lems. Ken talks about your wallet being drained, and we'll get to that. And it's interesting because the Ashkenazis, we're going to see a lot about them. They learned a lot of occult black magic in Babylon, and they took it with them wherever they went. Again, we ask, was Dracula Limish? So, a lot of people have done a lot of study about the Dracula novel, and chief among those has been a rather extensive team of Romanian scholars, because it was supposedly set in Romania, the Vlad the Impaler connection. But scholars of Romanian origin have pointed out that Count Dracula, I keep wanting to talk in the voice, but I'm not going to do it. They've pointed out that Count Dracula shares nothing more than the name with Vlad the Impaler. If you go through Stoker's Dracula, there is no connections between what Vlad was and what Dracula is presented as being. Most scholars, most modern scholars, and I'd say almost all of the ones from Romania have come to the conclusion that the real origin of the Count Dracula is found in a novel called Trilby. And this novel was written by George du Maurier in 1895. Now, the villain of this book, Trilby, was an Ashkenazi limb who seduced, dominated, and exploited young, nubile European girls, exactly like Count Dracula. Dracula, I don't know where the extra T came from. Dracula is cast as a sinister foreign seducer. Now think about that. Here's Bram Stoker. He's writing about Dracula, and he paints Dracula as a sinister foreign influence. Be careful of sinister foreign influences. And he also paints Dracula as a person that seduces, a person that dominates, a person that kills, drinks the blood of the young. And folks, you've got to understand that there's lore going back thousands of years, especially in Europe, of vampires seducing, dominating, exploiting young European girls. And it gets more interesting when you realize that even though the information has been suppressed until now, it's easily discoverable on a short, simple study on your favorite internet browser that Bram Stoker is universally held to have held overt racialist opinions as regarding the world being divided between the Goyim, that's non-Jews. I don't like to use that word, but I don't know what else to say, between the non-limbs and the limbs. The author himself, Bram Stoker, held overt, strong opinions about racial purity. And he looked at the world as limbs versus non-limbs. And in his work, in his life, he's described as having very strong anti-Limish beliefs. So I'm asking you, do you think a guy that had very strong anti-Limish beliefs just happened to paint Count Dracula as a Limish individual, seemingly? And we'll see what you think as we get through this. Stoker is a good example of the late Victorian era intellectual advocate. And what that means is, in the Victorian era in Europe, they were beginning to realize that they were under an invasion. They were beginning to realize their financial systems, their press. They were beginning to realize their entertainment was being taken over by a specific group. And they began to warn each other, hey, we got to get rid of these people. We got to keep our eye on these people. And Bram Stoker is a good example of this idea and being an advocate for the need to protect your nation from racial degeneracy and to ensure the health of the national body. And I tell you what, as we look around today in our great nation, it seems like it's about time for us to think about that again. All the experts agree, and my studies agree, which is all that really matters to me, is that Bram Stoker was almost certainly writing from an anti-limb perspective, and he was writing as a warning to us, a warning to his readers. Now, of course, when a guy writes a book, and I've written 14, 15 of them, you write a book because you have a message to tell, but you also write a book because you hope somebody's going to read the damn thing. So he really wanted to write a book that would be popular, that people would read. And he also wanted to write a book to make people aware of some things and to encourage people, even if it was subliminally, to stand up for their racial purity, stand up for their nation, and stand up against invasive foreign influences. So the reality is that Dracula was probably not based on Vlad the Impaler. It probably wasn't, but I don't want to get hooked. I don't want to die on that hill with you, but it just seems like it wasn't about Vlad the Impaler. That wasn't really the motivation. So is it any wonder then that Stoker would take a sinister alien limb prototype and use that as his model for the ultimate creature of the night? Not really, says Rosemary W. Pennington, who wrote an article that I took some of these examples from. Now, Stoker shows his dislike of limbs themselves right in the Dracula novel. I've read the novel. And he describes, and this is interesting, the name is, look at what the name of this character is, Emmanuel. That should ring a bell. That should ring a bell. This character was called Emmanuel Hildesheim. And Emmanuel Hildesheim in the novel was Count Dracula's principal mercantile agent. In fact, the only one named in the book. So Stoker shows this Emmanuel, that's important, and we'll get to it in a minute, Emmanuel Hildesheim, Dracula's principal mercantile agent, and he writes him as a comical-looking limmish man, explicitly stated as a comical-looking limmish man who wears a fez hat, with the little thing on it, and has, quote, a nose like a sheep. And in the collection of follow-up stories that were published based on the success of Dracula, Stoker included a character in a book called Gypsy Prophecy, which we could get into that too. Maybe we will. He referred to limbs as peddlers of hokum, which means magic, sleight of hand, to the ignorant and gullible who believe the claims that the limbs can predict the future via fake prophecies. Now, let's put a couple of breadcrumbs together here if we can. We're talking about Ashkenazis, and I'll hold this for a minute. But remember, he's talked about Ashkenazis. He's talked about magic. And now he's talking about this limb agent, and he calls him Emmanuel. Emmanuel. And if you remember your Bible, Emmanuel is a name pinned on plastic Jesus. And they say Emmanuel means God is with us. And here is this limb being called Emmanuel, and this particular limb Or in another story, right after he writes about this limb, he talks about another character who refers to the magic of the limbs and also the ability of the limbs to control the gullible and the ignorant by convincing them that they can predict the future via fake prophecy. What have I been telling you for 3 years? The limbs invented Christianity. The limbs wrote your Bible figuratively and literally, and the limbs created prophecy to fool the ignorant and the gullible, and to control you by making up fake prophecy to scare you and make you run into their fear and guilt control matrix. And Bram Stoker in Dracula was trying to tell you this, just like I'm trying to tell you this. Wow. And in his other novel, Sherry, think about it. You'll figure it out. Think about it. You got to engage your brain here. You got to engage your brain. In his novel, The Jewel of Seven Stars, Bram Stoker references Kabbalistic Limbish magic as protection for the foolish and the duped. And it's a direct reference to the Babylonian magic learned and exported by the Ashkenazis. Jeff, why did you stop being into magic? Why did you renounce your initiation as a magical priest? Because I figured out where it was coming from. Babylon, Kabbalah, limbs, don't want any part of it. And part of magic is to control gullible and ignorant people. The goal of prophecy is to control gullible and ignorant people. The goal of the Bible is to control gullible and ignorant people. The goal of Christianity is to control gullible and ignorant people. The bottom line is that plastic Jesus has come to suck your blood. Blah, 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 blah. There, I did it. And it's true. And in the short story, Crook and Sands, which has been labeled as an anti-Semitic tale by the experts, Stoker features a character again called Emmanuel. That's why I got the asterisk. One time, maybe Jeff's just reading into it. Twice, Jeff has found a pattern. This is why I do what I do, and this is why you're here. Because we found a pattern. We got an Emmanuel in Dracula. We've got an Emmanuel in Crook and Sands, which is overtly, supposedly, anti-Semitic. And if you look at this, this is brilliant, brilliant. Emmanuel, which is thoroughly Christian, right? Because it relates to plastic Jesus. Moses is obviously thoroughly limbish because it relates to Moses. And then Marx is thoroughly what? Communist because of Karl Marx. And guess what? Christianity, limbism, communism, it's all the same thing, and it comes from the same source. Ding, 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 ding. And watch this. Christian, limbish, communist pretends to be Scottish when in fact he's limbish. Ooh. So it's Christianity, it's New Testament, it's Old Testament, it's communism, and it all comes back to these folks right here. And what does he do? He cons the main character, the white guy, the Western guy, the nice guy, into buying phony, tartan garments. Those are the ones with the checks, on it that they wear, and they wear nothing under them, but we're not going to get into that. And he profits handsomely with his lies and with his exorbitant prices, as Ken was saying, relieving you of extra weight in your wallet. Folks, if he did it once, again, maybe it's just an anomaly and maybe I'm reading into it, but he's done it twice. And he puts this together, New Testament, Old Testament communism. He's trying to tell us, listen, you guys. As Harry says, all three are the New World Order. And he's painting Dracula in these same clothes. Stoker's warning us of infiltration by the limbs. That's amazing stuff. And not just because Ken's here, but we do this every night because it is such good stuff and it's made such a profound difference in my life. We always mention the C60 purple power. I call it the fountain of youth because it turned my hair away from gray back to its normal color. And it is the best antioxidant on the planet. It knocks the heavy metals out of your system like nothing else on the planet. Cliff High and his wife say they're still alive because of C60. It makes an old dog feel young again. I'm talking about Merlin, not me. It is great stuff. C60 purple power. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the logo. Your discount's built right in. Or if you just go to c60purplepower.com, you can use the code TCW10. This is, if I could only take one supplement, this is the one that I would take. So, Bram Stoker trying to sound the alarm, trying to let us know. And what was he doing? Brandon's right. Socialist Street, or Sesame Street, which my kids still call Sesamstrasse because we were in Germany when they started watching it, is a socialist primer for children, a communist primer for children. Now, Bram Stoker was, I'm convinced, trying to warn that it's foolish to trust the Limmish because they will always act in their best interest and not your best interest. Anybody that's in your country that has allegiance to something else other than your country is not going to put your country first. They're just not. And to put those kind of people in positions of leadership it's just completely ludicrous, foolish, and stupid. And Stoker paints it so plainly that you can't miss it. He shows his upright, his honest, his hardworking English characters and the shyster Limmish marks to convey this message. It's a common theme in Bram Stoker's writings, whether you agree with Bram Stoker or not, whether you think he's a jerk or you think he's brilliant, he was definitely trying in his writings to warn America about what he saw was a dangerous Limmish invasion. Now, in Stoker's books, moneylenders are always characteristically portrayed with the negative figure of the Limmish person. Gee, I wonder why. He also structures the limbs as imposters within the community whenever he's writing. Gee, I wonder why. And upon review of all Bram Stoker's writings, the limb in Stoker's literary output is a devious, dangerous, racial alien who uses superficial veneer of Christianity to manipulate and seduce those around him. And it's Christianity, man. Christianity is a thin veneer over a Limmish system that's got you duped and is continuing to suck the blood out of you, not just for this life, not just from your race, not just from your nation, not just from your wallet, not just literally from your veins, but trying to get you to come back so they can keep doing it to you over and over and over and over and over. Over and over and over. Stoker's limbs are creatures of evil bent on deflowering the industrious English. And it's not just us, but it's everywhere they go. That's what they do. Why? Because they're vampires, as Benjamin Franklin so adroitly stated. Stoker sounded a prescient, which means like prophetic, like he saw it beforehand. Stoker sounded a prescient call to arms for non-limbs to stand up and reclaim their racial, their national, their financial vitality before it was too late. He wrote this in 1897, right? Yeah. That's been a long time ago, and we're watching it happen. But that's not even the worst of it, ladies and gentlemen. That's not even the worst of it. And I'm not the first person to see this. I want to call you to this quote from the Times of Israel. From the Times of Israel. And this writer says, in the classic 1931 Dracula, that's the movie, in the classic 1931 Dracula film starring Bela Lugosi, and do you really think it is a coincidence that Dracula is played by Bela Lugosi and that the love interest for the vampire in Twilight is named Bella? Of course it's not a coincidence. It's not a big conspiracy either. It's very smart of, what was her name, Stephanie Myers, to pick that. So smart for her. That's about the only good thing she did, but smart for her. So anyway, Bela Lugosi, this, and I looked this up and it's amazing. And you're going to see it here in a few minutes. There's a scene that's repeated several times at the beginning of the film. And it disturbed this, obviously, limbish writer for the Times of Israel. And if you still got to ask me what limb means after that sentence, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about you. So, scene, beginning of Dracula movie, several times disturbs this limbish viewer. In the beginning of the film, when Dracula is first introduced to viewers, and you sooner or later, you're going to learn to stop questioning me. Sooner or later, you're going to learn to say, I know I don't agree with him right now, but I know if I study, he's going to be right. Because I can't remember the last time I was wrong. I really can't remember. I don't know if Cynthia could recall. When's the last time I was wrong? It's been at least 2.5 years since I was wrong. But anyway, this isn't about me. At the beginning of the movie, when you first get introduced, yesterday I wasn't wrong. What are you talking about? When you first get introduced to Dracula, you see him wearing an oversized necklace with, wait for it, the Star of David on it, the Jewish star, hanging on the end of the necklace. Are you kidding me? I looked it up. When you first see Dracula, he's got a big ass, what was the guy that wore the clocks around his neck? A big ass Flava Flav Star of David around his neck. And this limbish writer says that the unusually large size of the Star of David betrays the film's desire to call attention to it. Wow. It seems, I once bowled with Flava Flav in Vegas. I'm telling you, he was on the lane next to us. He was digging on my girlfriend. We bowled a few frames. He was drunk as hell. And I was a little disappointed because he had one of those cheap-ass white clocks like you got in school, in your schoolroom around his neck. I'm like, damn, Flava Flav, that shit is plastic. He didn't like that. He did not like that. But I felt compelled to point that out to him. You're in public in Vegas. Don't wear a cheap-ass clock around your neck. You're Flava Flav. And then we saw that bitch riding home. I swear to you, we drove by. He's riding on the sidewalk on one of them great big, huge, tall bicycles. Of course, he had about 14 kids that he was paying child support for. So he was probably lucky he had the bike. He was probably happy to have the bike. And that probably explains the cheap-ass clock. I had no idea Flava Flav was going to make it into this discussion. But anyway, Times of Israel guy says that the movie was trying to equate Jews to Dracula. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Of course he was trying to equate Dracula. Oh, did I say the J word? I meant limbs. He was trying to equate Dracula as a limb. Wow. And he was implying that they both need to drink blood. I didn't say this. This guy from the Times of Israel said this. I didn't say that Bram Stoker was trying to equate the limbs to Dracula and saying that they both need to drink blood. This guy from the Times of Israel said it. It seems to recall, he says, the many blood libels brought against limbs claiming that they need to drink blood for ritual purposes. More about that later. Blood libels. I told you this was going on. For all eternity, people have said that the limbs steal children and drink their blood. And now they're saying the Christians do. But only because they do. Emmanuel, Moses, Marx. Remember that. There's your Trinity. Although Stoker's fictional Dracula does not explicitly identify Dracula as a limb, many scholars see it implicit in the book as it is in the film. Barbara Belford, in her 1996 book, Bram Stoker, says that Stoker's book is based upon, as I just told you, the novel Trilby about a limb who seduces, dominates, and exploits nubile European girls. Scholar William Hughes, in his 2000 book called Beyond Dracula, gives evidence that Bram Stoker was an anti-Semite. H.L. Malkow, in Gothic Images of Race in the 19th Century, Britain, wrote that in 1996 that Bram Stoker's novel has several deplorable characterizations of limbs. For example, Dracula himself, Dracula as a limb, both suck blood. Dracula himself is described as having a beaky nose in one place, and similarly an aquiline nose in another. The word aquiline means a beak. And like an eagle's beak, the kind of nose that anti-Semites ascribe to limbs. Wow. I studied this all day long. I hope it'll at least leave a mark. A hooked beak. That's right, Tracy Dyer. Did the producers of the 1931 Dracula movie want us to see Dracula as a limb? I don't know what I was thinking. As a limb? And did Bram Stoker want us to see Dracula as a limb? Yeah, I think so. Joe King says it was like a pecker. A pecker, he says. So remember that necklace that he was talking about? Yep. Looks like a Star of David. Yep. Looks like a Star of David. Yep. Looks like a Star of David. Folks, you don't put a Star of David on the vampire in the movie unless you're trying to make a point. What's the point? Well, there's 6 of them. Dracula. Look at that nose. Dracula. as presented by Bram Stoker. Limb all day long. And this from the Georgetown University blog. Bram Stoker's Dracula is an anti-Semitic text. When meeting Hildesheim, who is Emmanuel, remember, another Emmanuel, Stoker described him as a Hebrew of rather the Adelphi theater type, with a nose like a sheep and a fez. That's on page 302 of Dracula. By describing the man this way, as well as noting how easy it was to bribe him, Stoker relies on age-old Limmish stereotypes, as well as his blatant anti-Semitic remark from Georgetown University. Stoker integrates much contempt for the limbs. What was I thinking? I was working too hard. Into his novel. He compares Dracula to Hildesheim, Emmanuel Hildesheim, and all stereotypical limbs by describing his large nose, his pointed ears, and his prominent eyebrows. We got the aquiline thing again. Ooh, hooked noses. I think Tracy said that. Stoker writes of Dracula's hair growing scantily around the temples but profusely elsewhere. Ooh, his eyebrows were very massive, almost meeting over the beak, with bushy hair that seemed to curl in its own profusion. That's on page 23. Dracula. Dracula is repeatedly portrayed as an alien presence whose ultimate intent is to undermine the way of life of the British and the American characters. Stoker echoed many contemporary worries about the Jews, the limbs at this time. That's the point, folks. He wasn't writing this in a vacuum. Yeah, he was writing it to sell some books. Yeah, he was writing it to make some money. He was writing this to tell people about the dark history of the European vampire lore and what it's really about. And he was writing this to warn people. Remember, he was writing this in 1897. You're 20 years from the communist Limmish revolution in Russia. He notes and echoes contemporary worries about the limbs at the time. As it's written in the footnotes of Dracula, Limmish immigration swelled in the 1890s, leading to much fear about the disruption of the Western status quo. Though Dracula is never specifically described as Limmish, we know nothing of his background. He's ambiguous. He's an outsider. His presence in the novel echoes the Victorian fear that their power would be undermined imminently. So in portraying Dracula this way, Stoker reveals his, in the words of this writer, anti-Semitic fear that the influx, you might flex before you flux, I don't know, of Jewish Limmish immigration would disturb all semblance of order in the West. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. And yes, you know, there is still more to come. And I've got to remind you about Mystech. I wear Mystech because it optimizes me physically, mentally, and spiritually. My subtle body, which is my energetic body, my blood, my electromagnetic frequencies. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on that M logo. It's the only place you can get 20% off, ladies and gentlemen. It's good stuff. So is this. A lot of work here, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of work. And now we make a turn. Now we talk about a deeper warning. While losing our national sovereignty and racial and financial heritage are huge concerns, and they are. That's what this is about. We don't want to lose our national sovereignty. Trump, 2020. We don't want to lose our racial sovereignty. Trump, 2020. We don't want to lose our financial heritage. Trump, 2020. Those are huge concerns. But Stoker in this novel hints at even deeper and more precious losses that we face due to our own lack of diligence, our own over-reliance on our own decency, and our refusal to see what's right in front of us. Thank you, Candidly. Stoker based Count Dracula on a limb for several reasons. He specifically identifies Dracula and his other limbish characters as Ashkenazi limbs. That's important because Ashkenazi limbs are the limbish population, you're not going to believe this, that coalesced in the Holy Roman Empire around the end of the first millennium. He's not talking about just any limbs. He's talking about the Roman Empire limbs. And if they were there at the end of the first millennium, that means they were part and parcel. Calm down, Jeff. This is exciting to me. They were part and parcel of the invention and the rise of both Christianity and modern rabbinic Judaism. They adopted traditions carried from Babylon to their new environment. He spells it out for you. Emmanuel, Moses, Marx, it all comes from the same place your Old Testament came from, the same place your New Testament came from, the same place your Christianity comes from. I don't care if it's Roman Catholic, Roman Protestant, or we just want a little dabble do ya Christianity. It's all from the same source. The bloodsuckers. They've come to suck your blood. Blah, 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 blah. They have. Cynthia laughed. I heard it. Stoker portrays Dracula as a sinister foreign seducer. This goes again to our vital national, racial, financial sovereignty, but to even something more precious to us, ladies and gentlemen. And Stoker hints at what's more precious to us when he portrays Dracula as a fiend that seduces, dominates, and exploits young, nubile European girls. Hey, foreskin vampire slayer, quit being a troll. Why don't you check out the damn channel when I told you yesterday or the day before who the synagogue of Satan is? Get the hell out of my house and quit drinking out of my milk jug, bitch. Think about it. He seduces, dominates, exploits young, nubile girls and boys. This is what's really more precious. This is what Stoker's really worrying about. They're stealing your children. They're killing your children. They're drinking your children. Emmanuel's, Moses's, Marxist. That's the deeper warning, ladies and gentlemen. This portrayal is warning us of the loss of things much more precious. Limbs have always been accused of stealing children, always been accused of sacrificing children, always have been accused of using them in hideous blood rituals. Now you can answer why they've always been accused that in your own mind. But the Times of Israel writer also mentioned it. The unusually large size of the Star of David betrays the film's desire to call attention to it. It seems to equate limbs to Dracula and imply that they both need to drink blood. Just because you Christians eat his flesh and drink his blood, blah, blah, blah. Do I really have to explain it to you? This is a high compliment. It doesn't get any better than this. Harry says, Jeffrey has helped me get all of my family out of Christianity. Wow. Thank you, Harry. That makes my day. Implies that they both need to drink blood. Listen, the Emmanuels need to drink blood. The Moseses need to drink blood. The Marxists need to drink blood. And they want the blood of your babies. It seems to recall the many blood libels brought against limbs, claiming that limbs need to drink blood for ritual purposes, only because they do. That's where the Christians get it from back home, from mama. A blood libel or a ritual murder libel is, and I looked this up in Encyclopedia Britannica, anti-Semitic canard. A canard means a false story, but you consider the source. Blood libel accuses limbs of murdering Christian children. I've tried to show you this so many times, and I didn't see it until I'd been through it. I didn't see it for 40 years, so I got to cut you some slack, because we all remember Jesus, right? Plastic Jesus. He loves the little children of the world, red, yellow, black, and white. They're all precious in his sight because he wants to take a goddamn bite. But remember, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the New Testament. All you remember is the part where plastic Jesus said, no, suffer the little children, let them come unto me. For such is the kingdom of God. But what you didn't realize is that plastic Jesus wouldn't have had to say, no, let them come, if there weren't people saying, don't let your children go to Jesus. They eat children. Why do you think not 1, but 2, but 3 people were saying, don't let him near your kids? And why do you think plastic Jesus said, with a nice little girl on his lap, the kingdom of God is this is such is the kingdom of God. It's good to be the Son of God. Bouncing her on his knee. That was meant to be creepy and sick. That was meant to be Christian or creepy and sick. I see you, Vinny. Historically, these claims have been a major theme of the persecution of limbs. Well, I wonder why. It's bad enough you want to steal our money. It's bad enough you want to control our country. It's bad enough you want to control our press. It's bad enough you want to control our entertainment. But you also want to eat our kids. This is why it's so important to recognize Stoker's declaration of Dracula as not just a limb, but as an Ashkenazi limb. And does anybody notice the last 4 words of that? There's got to be a tie-in, because this is not really a word. It's a slang word. It's an insult. And now we know why and where it comes from. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. A little heavy on the trigger finger there. Remember that if you want to take some of my shit. Heavy on the trigger finger. Wow. Wow. Remember, the Ashkenazis were the limbs who lived in the Roman Empire and created Christianity and created modern rabbinic Judaism. Remember, it was all destroyed. They destroyed all of the scrolls, all of the texts. The Bible wasn't even written yet. And what happened? The Romans hired Jewish scribes, fed Jewish scribes, housed Jewish scribes so they could rewrite the Old Testament. And it was rewritten in the rabbinic sense. And so they could at the same time write what they would call the New Testament. Your Ashkenazi, Dracula, blood-sucking, blah, blah, blah. People did it. Stoker's alerting us that the limbs and the Christians are just two sects of the same people. Stoker is warning us that the limbs and their Christian offspring want our children to satiate their ritual consumption of human blood, which, of course, comes down to adrenochrome. The fact that the oldest studio, Universal Pictures, decided to blatantly feature Dracula with the Star of David, and guess who owned Universal Studios at that time? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2.5 don't even count. They decided to show Dracula, knowing all this. They decided to show Dracula with a great big huge Flava Flav Star of David around his neck. Why did they do it? Joe is hitting it hard in the chat room right now. Joe King. You say it's symbolic, eating flesh and drinking blood. What's it symbolic of, bitches? What? No answer? They put this great big huge Flava Flav Star of David around Dracula's neck to show their utter contempt for us. Not only do they make a movie about infiltrating us, not only do they make a movie about eating our children, they brand the star monster with their unique logo. So there's no mistaking who's the dude that does the deed. They're flaunting it in our faces. Or at least they were in 1931. And they do this as they whine about stereotypes. It's classic deflection and misdirection, and it's a deeper warning. And you were wondering when this was coming, because remember, they were flaunting it in our faces in 1931. But things have changed since 1931. And some of them have changed for the better. Again, there's that Star of David, just in case you forgot. You're like, damn, that is a Star of David. Damn, they are trying to make him look like a limb. If you look closely, he's got a yarmulke on. No, I'm just kidding. But would it surprise you? No. Stoker warned us in his book. Few listened. The limbs laughed at us in their film. And by the way, they still are. Oh, man, Brooke talked about Disney. Cynthia showed me something today. They got it's a Frozen toy. It's at the store, Frozen, those, my little granddaughter sings the song. I've never seen the damn movie. But Frozen, those girls, Elsa, and I don't know, was it Hans and Franz? I forget their name, Elsa and whatever. And it's a dildo that you blow on. Come on, Disney. Yeah, Tracy knows about the Frozen toy. And I think sometimes people freeze those things before they insert them. I'm just saying. It's Frozen. There's none who are so blind as those who refuse to see Emmanuel's. You Old Testaments, you New Testaments, you Marxist. Christians, you are so blind because you refuse to see. All right, some of you were waiting for this. And here it is. Not all sheriff badges are 5-pointed, but that's an interesting point. See what I did with that? Before we talk about Edward, let me remind you that some people believe in these uncertain times, you're able to leverage them through the acquisition of precious metals to help yourself out. Miles Franklin has 29 years of dependability from the same father and son team that started it. Miles Franklin Precious Metals, they will do you right. Cynthia and I have used them. We feel good about it. And go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Miles Franklin banner, and you'll get the information you need about precious metals. Okay, so 1931, they had Count Dracula. Definitely Limish. 2008, here comes Edward Cullen. Notice any differences between Count Dracula and Edward Cullen? Somewhere they must have got a little worried. Because 2008 brought us Twilight and a whole new kind of vampire. Encyclopedia Britannica. It's the first film, Twilight is, in the Twilight Saga film series. This film, listen to this. This film focuses on the development of a relationship between Bella Swan, a teenage girl. Bela Lugosi, Bella Swan, a teenage girl. It focuses on the relationship between a teenage girl and Edward Cullen, a vampire. Well, if they know we're trying to eat their children, what if we did this? What if we made a movie where one of us is nice to one of them? You know what? Then they might not fight so hard when we take them. In fact, some of them might want to go. So Bella Swan, a teenage girl, Edward Cullen, a vampire. But wait, there's more, because it's about the subsequent efforts of Edward and his family to keep Bella safe from bad vampires. So not only will we got a vampire being nice to a girl so he doesn't have to fight her and knock her out, no reason to spoil the meat, but now we got vegan vampires who are really nice to young girls. So all young girls should just go with vampires, no problem. No problem. Vampires are not evil anymore. There's good vampires now. They drive Volvos and wear Abercrombie and Fitch and have great hair. They don't want to eat teenage girls anymore. Well, they just want to protect them from the bad vampires. True Blood, Vampire Diaries. There's been a lot of Hollywood rehabilitation of the vampire mythos. Brooke just got a big chill down her back. Yep. I get that all the time. There's good vampires now. There's vegan vampires now. Teenage girls don't have to worry about vampires anymore. They just want to protect you. How many kids have willingly surrendered to slick captors because of Twilight? Think about that. Oh, Jeff, come on. Nobody would believe that. The movie grossed over $393 million worldwide. It was released as a DVD in March of 2009 and became the most purchased DVD of the year. You really don't think anybody's watching? You really don't think that the rehabilitation, the vampire mythos is intentional? The good news is that they're getting a little bit nervous. I Am Nancy says, I can't stop saying, oh shit. They're getting a little bit nervous, ladies and gentlemen. That's the good news. Ooh. You know, I know it was 1931. I know that maybe it wasn't a big budget movie. But couldn't you find a crucifix bigger than that? We can't even tell what it is. The limbs have shown us that they know that we know. They're rehabilitating the vampires. They have also shown us that they won't go quietly. They're rehabilitating the vampires. Bram Stoker was right. Stephanie Meyer spells her name funny. She's a bought and paid for apologist for the vampires. And Mormons also do communion, by the way. We see the evidence all around us. And by the way, Dracula wasn't really afraid of crosses. He was just afraid of you finding out that he works for the manufacturers of the crosses. She is Mormon. That's why I said Mormons still do communion. Why are you showing this? They will know. The real question is, are we getting any smarter? Are we getting any smarter? I don't know. From Dracula, which was a warning, to Twilight, which is apologetics. Look it up if you don't know what it means. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, and I bring you the truth that no one else will. Wow. That's some deep stuff. In the chat room. Joking. Damn it. Harry, all three are one world order. Absolutely. Candid Lee says, really good. Critical thinker. Bravo, Jeff. Thank you. They even have to use the vampire, the count from Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3. I need more blood. They do. They use the count on Sesame Street. Maka, what a great catch. It is sick. Brooke says, always black and red. Summing at the root chakra, taking your security away. Huh. Wow, Jeff, I wouldn't have put the three together. Just would have thought they were all psyops, but that's too generic. I can see now. That's why I'm here, candidly. Uncle Quester, you throw the ads in flawlessly. I try. And you know who I learned that from? Chris Jericho. I'm glad to say Chris Jericho is my friend, and he invited me on his podcast. I started listening, and he's really good at it. So I figured, you know what? If Jericho can do it, I can do it. So thanks to Chris Jericho, watch AEW Wrestling. I'm not sure what network it's on or what night, but it's really, really good. And Fozzy is going on tour in the fall, so make sure you check him out. Erica K, OMG, this is incredible. I've had a few of these pieces to the puzzle, and here you are giving me a few more. I don't remember how I stumbled on your channel, but I'm sure grateful I did. I am too, Erica K. Nice to see you. Let's see. Don't forget to hit Jeff up. Give us a thumbs up. It drives the video through the algorithms. And thanks again for the explosion of subscribers. Suck you dry just like in the movies. You're right, Brooke. Matthew says, raising our mortal bodies again and again so we can suck the blood. You're right, Matthew. Lola, drain your energy. Psychic vampires, that's certainly part of it. Brandon says that's the truly horrible part. It's a recycling of torture. Yes, it is. And Christians, you signed up for it. But he's going to raise our body. No, your mortal body. That body's subject to death. You don't get no glorified body. Read your contract. It's in Romans chapter 8. Look up the word mortal. I've done it 1,000 times for you. Well, at least 100. I don't know what that means. Jeff thought he was wrong, but he was mistaken. I was. Matthew says he's boggled by how much common sense is absent. Common sense is not anymore, is it? Using a book they don't believe in to defend what they say. I'm not sure what that means, but thanks for playing. Villains are arrogant and have to tell the sheep what's up, but in a roundabout way. Good one, Sorcha. Very good one. Brandon Hellman says, "Ya boy." Flav does live in Vegas, or at least he did then. Poppy Bush's ancestry supposedly goes back to Vlad, which is really interesting. Really, really interesting. Old Testament full of blood sacrifice. Have you heard about the New Testament and killing your son on a cross? I think that counts. Let's see. I shot the sheriff. Doesn't the deep state hate the limbs too? No. The deep state is probably almost 100% limb. White Eagle says he thinks the limbs are making their big move. I think they're making their last desperate move. That's why you got Carmella and Vanilla on their ticket. Reminds me of McDonald's. You got Vanilla Joe and Carmella Harris. It's like a Carmella Sundae from McDonald's. Cheap as shit and makes you poop. You don't want them. You do not want them. All right. Come on, Jeff. Let's keep going. Thank you, Jeff. Fascinating. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. Let the freak flag fly. I'm not sure why Joe said that, but hey, we get random expressions of ecstasy from time to time on this show. I was Christian until 2 weeks ago. Now I got to get my boy out. Yes, you do, Maka. Let's see. You handled that well. Gone, bitch. Thank you, White Eagle. Eat his flesh, drink his blood. I got to read this again. Jeffrey's helped me get all my family out of Christianity. Thank you, Harry. That's amazing, amazing, amazing. Brooke, all symbols mean something. Great uncovering. Thank you. I've been a heathen for so long. I can't remember that stuff, says Strange Crow Lady. Wow. This is a bloody mess, says Lola. Yes, it is. Oh. Vinny, I will check my Skype. I never check my Skype. I'll check it. I promise. Artie says absolutely groundbreaking. Great research and presentation. Thank you, Artie. I appreciate it so very much. And it's all right because Sterling agrees with me. Now I can relax. Let's see what else. Joe is hitting that. What's it symbolic of? A lot of holes filled in today, says Lisa. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's still happening all over the Disney thing. Absolutely. The Frozen toys, disgusting. Facebook took it off of Cynthia's page. Of course they did. I guess there's a troll that when you touch its groin, it giggles. He touched my groin, I might giggle too, but I'm not a toy. Well, I was going to say I'm not for sale. I mean, I'm not even sure if that's true. Everybody's got a price. I don't have a price. I'm just kidding. I used to have over 100 as a child. I think we're talking about trolls. I used to have 100 as a child. I had a dream that they bunched my blanket up and tried killing me with it. I woke up in my dresser next to the bed and all of the trolls behind the blanket. I threw them away the next day. Creepy little shits. I don't think I've ever seen a 3-stage comment before. Well done, Sorcha. That was funny. Probably not to you, but that was funny. Yeah, Charles Peter Watson. I started thinking too about the werewolves in that movie. Maybe we'll have to do another show about that one. Edward, who are dead. Edward equals who are dead. Huh. Interesting. Sending chills down Brooke's back. Joe loves the vampire stories. It still pisses Joe off. Yep. Getting us used to the idea of drinking blood and zombies. They've even had a movie of a zombie that was good and some girl was like with them. Remember they were on that airplane. Can't remember what that was called. Let's see. What else we got? He's been all year, Vinny. He's been all year what? I missed that one. But anyway. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cousins of all ages, Carmel Sunday. Yep. Post the links, mods. I don't know what mod link you mean. Okay. Troll, dolls, toy soldiers, fledglings. Werewolves may connect to God/dog. I like it. Nice to see you, Tony in Ireland. Vinny Eastwood demonetized. Me too, Vinny. Sucks. Night of the Living Dead, more brains. Well, folks, I hope that you get it. I hope that you think about it. I hope that you let this sink into your brain. I hope you let this resonate. From Dracula, which was a warning, to Twilight, which is apologetics. I'm here to bring you the truth that nobody else will. That's what I do, and I'm going to keep doing it. And since we have been demonetized, we appreciate your help. You can just go to my website, jeffreydaugherty.com, or just do it that way. There's a donate button there. That's so easy. All right, folks. And I think there's anyway, for Tracy Dyer and all of our other great moderators, we thank you for being here. For the lovely Cynthia, I salute you for being here seeking after truth. I'm just the mailman. And now you've got mail. I put it in the box. It's up to you to read it. And it's up to you to act appropriately with it. My job is done. Antonio, glad that you're out. And I know that you'll keep your nose clean. And we appreciate you here watching. Ask questions, question answers. Unindoctrinate yourself. And get ready to lead, because we are the last generation of real humans. And we're here to win. And win. And then win again. I know this is not what you hear. I know this is not what they tell you, but this world is going to be better than it's ever been, sooner than you can imagine, if we'll all just get busy. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. And through rain, sleet, snow, dark of night, vampires, werewolves, trolls, and anything else, it will not keep me from my appointed rounds. I will deliver the mail. Cynthia and I appreciate you very much. Thank you for the surge in subscriptions. Let's keep it going. And until tomorrow, when I've got, we got some more stuff tomorrow. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, saluting you for being here, seeking after truth.